Hey guys, what is up? Lord Nick here, bringing you another episode of the Dangerous Game Podcast. Wow, that's a great start, right? I wanted to do a talk about game balance and design philosophies that Riot has. The problem being is that Riot has not been very open about their design philosophy. So I'm going off of an article. I was going off of an article that they had released that said about how they wanted to change it, and I was going to talk about how the current changes that they just made completely contradict that. But that's it's not as good of a video as I'd hoped it to. I've tried making it about 4 or 5 times and didn't like its outcome. So instead, I kind of decided, I still need to do the podcast, and I hadn't had anything else that I'd prepped this week, but I really wasn't liking the turnout of the previous attempts. So let's go over 9.12, right? Like, these are the most recent patch. It's kind of one of those things that's, not everybody goes over it, but might as well go over it ourselves and talk about some of the changes that might have gone under the radar for a lot of people that are going to probably affect the game a lot more than people thought. So, first up in 9.12, there was quite a bit of balancing going on here. Outside of course, the Mordekaiser rework, which I'm assuming everybody at this point kind of knows is a little bit on the OP side. There is some counterplay to the guy, but, I feel he is extremely strong in the right hands, and in most people's hands, he can just dominate the laning phase. That being said, we're not going to really talk too much about him, as we still need time to learn how powerful he is. I feel like he's kind of Yumi on release, right? Like, he has, in the right hands, he seems like he's overpowered, but in pretty much the average hands, he looks terrible. Um, now, Rise has had a small rework. It was kind of interesting. So they lowered his base mana by quite a bit. They increased his base mana regen by 2, which both of those seem very odd choices. But I kind of get it. He was seeming a little bit too consistent in pro play previously. But what they ended up doing, I feel, ends up buffing him in a way, but they did kind of give him the orange treatment. They gave him more damage but less protection, which I think overall is probably a better fit for Rise overall. The shield that he had was kind of dumb in pro tier hands, and it basically anybody else's hands he was kind of a worthless champion. But they reduced his Q ranks back down to 5. He no longer gets a shield from consuming 2 runes with his Q. They updated his spell damage bonus on his Q is now based on his Realm Warps rank. So ranks 1 to at no rank of Realm Warp you have a 10% bonus. At 1 rank you get 40, at 2 ranks you get 70, and at 3 ranks it's 100% bonus damage. So once you get that level 16, he is a monster with damage. He's going to be really, really strong at that point. But I think overall that's still a solid change. They also changed how much movement speed he gets with his combo, which now he gets 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, opposed from 25, 28, 31, 34, 37, 40. So it still ends at the same. It starts a little lower, ends at the same though, but it also has a better flow. I think that 5% increase is just a lot easier to follow overall. For any of you that didn't know that, if he procced 3 abilities with his Q being one of them, he gained movement speed, and that currently still remains the same. He just no longer gains the shield that he used to do. His W is no longer root, so this is huge. Since I have played the game, Rise has had a root on his W. His W has always been the prison. It has always been a root. They have now made it slow that says if you hit them with your E, it becomes a root. That's kind of neat. I feel like that's a much more balanced way. Like, you either use your E to get more damage on your Q and potentially clear wave, or now you can use it to root somebody in place. They, instead of being rooted for 0.75 seconds, though, if you use your W, they are slowed by 35% for 1.5 seconds. I overall believe that this is probably a better CC tool. Um, and then your cost of it has been decreased, and the ratio of its damage has been increased on based off of the bonus mana has gone up to 4% from 1%. So 4% of your bonus mana is now being converted to damage on this thing. So overall, I think the ability is a lot better than it used to be. Even though they took the root away, I think it still is just overall better. You can occasionally just need to use that slow to get away, opposed to having to root somebody, but you can root them when you have to hold them in place to allow for combos with you and your other players. So I think that this was a solid change and might add a little bit of ease of balancing to him in the future. Um, His E was changed. Its damage was reduced on all ranks by about 10. And then his cost of it was decreased, though, by 20 on the first one. It looks like 25, or 20, 15, 10. It ends up being the same on the last rank, but it goes down basically up. It just scales down, but it costs a little bit less on the rest of the ranks, which is kind of nice. And instead of having to play the game where you throw your flux out and then you throw your flux out again and it spreads, it now just spreads from everybody, but it only damages the first person it hits, which I think is a smart change overall. Again, adds a little bit of ease of balancing to him because now you have less things to worry about, constantly balancing on the guy, and makes his entry a little bit easier for most people. So it's going to open up the door for non-pros to play him, and it's going to reduce his, difficulty of balancing an ability that required you to constantly throw multiple at multiple targets. Now, Realm Warp has been changed to have 3 ranks now. Like it said before, overload damage is now based off of your Realm Warp. So overload damage against targets with Flux increased by it would be 40%, 70%, and 100% for each rank of the Realm Warp. So that's really nice. And then they put close enough. Immediately cast at max range when attempting to cast beyond that. So if you ever try to cast too far, it will cast it as far as it can. Um, Minimum cast range is now up to 1,000. Max cast range now up to 3,000, which is really good. It doesn't scale up to 3,000. It's just always at 3,000 now, which is really good. That minimum of 1,000 though means that somebody could stay within that 1,000 meters of you, and if you just or 1,000 units of you, and if they decide, oh, it looks like I could realm warp to you because you're trying to run away, you could just kind of turn around and they realm warp too far now. So like there is a little bit less, ability to just kind of jump onto somebody from close distance. It's now much more of a utility from more of a distance now, which is kind of good. Cooldown of it though does have a higher start cooldown of now at 210, but now at max rank of 3 it goes down to 150 opposed to 180. So all in all, it's a nice little balance change, and I would say overall buff to Rise. And I mean, it decreases the current combo bull crap that you see up in pro play, but it encourages a similar play style, but a much easier one to balance in solo queue, and it actually probably is playable in solo queue. I've attempted it a couple times, or one time in solo queue now, and a few times otherwise. I like how it plays. I feel like he's actually pretty good now. But I would hardly call him overpowered, so I think this is going to be interesting. Though that being said, I do think he might become too strong for pro play and might see some nerfs just because of that, which is unfortunate. Some balance changes to Rise, which is I just said that balance changes to Sylas, which was kind of seen coming. He continues to be a very competitive champion, and so most people have also found him to be quite good. So they decided to start, taking some swings at the most powerful pieces of his kit, such as an on-demand nature of his shield and his AoE wave clear. So they nerfed a little bit of his wave clear and the shielding that he hits. Yuumi overall hasn't increased her HP because they realized it was really low, but they nerfed her passive, which was a good nerf. If you didn't know this, something you could do with it was you get detach, auto somebody, get some mana back, and a shield that doesn't just disappear, it just stays on you until it's popped. And then if you go back to your ally, the ally gains the shield. So it used to be like 80 to 360 with 40% ability power, which was really dumb. And now it's 80 to 300 with 30% ability power, which is a pretty good sizable nerf for the shield size. And she also only gets 30 to 160 mana opposed to 40 to 160. This is from level 1 to level 18 on the mana refund from the auto. So that's nice. They fixed a bug with the Q, but the Q is still relatively strong, which is good, because if they nerfed that, I don't think she'd be playable at all. And then they changed the W a bit, so that they get less adaptive force to their teammates, which is good, because it was kind of broken how much she would give. And then You can now interrupt her dash with all forms of immobilizing CC. So stuns, snares, anything can stop it, opposed to just knockbacks and knockups, which is a good quality change so that you can interrupt it and give a little bit more counterplay to her. All in all, I don't think there's going to be too much there. We won't talk about the Aatrox ones because the biggest thing that happened was that they changed his R from being increasing a healing bonus from all incoming healing to just self healing only, which is a pretty big change overall. But I haven't been noticing that many heal supports in solo queue, so I don't know how much of effect we'll see about this in solo queue. Uh, but who knows? It might actually be a pretty big change. I feel like last batch's changed to where now he has to get a kill to get the revive on his ulti is the bigger part there. A little bit of a buff to Ashe, but let's continue to the big things, because I did say I wanted to talk about the big things. I did talk about those other things because they are kind of impactful to most people that probably didn't notice that they happened. But the big things that I think kind of went under the radar here are going to be the fact that Karma and Lulu both got buffs. Karma got a buff to her Q, which says that it went from a 25% slow to 35% slow, which is a pretty big increase. And then her E Inspire says that it now costs looks about 10 less at all ranks, and then movement speed duration, it was increased to 2.5 seconds, now matches the shield duration. So you have your movement speed that she gives quite a bit longer. It's a whole second longer than it used to be. That's going to be huge for Karma support and possibly Karma top now. Sorry. One of the big things that we might notice soon is the fact of the return to shield supports in the other roles in a Juggernaut comp coming up, because Yuumi, Lulu, and Karma are all going to be viable now. Now, the Lulu changes are also kind of interesting. You see that her help picks shield was increased by about 10 at every level, the cost of which was also decreased by about, it stays the same at the first rank, but goes down by 5, exponential 5, so plus 5 anyhow, an additional 5 every level. And then they cleaned up shield on allies and improved Pix's teleport and hit effects. So if they cleaned up how it looks and how it reads the hit effect from Pix's bonus damage, so that it will actively hit the correct target a little bit better now, which is nice. That's a very good change. They changed her VFXs a lot, which sometimes can be considered a buff or a nerf, depending on if the VFXs were not clean and clear, or if they were too easy to spot, and now you can see the range and stuff. It could be a nerf. But these are two relatively large changes, and the biggest reason these are huge changes is that the items for them are already pretty strong. If you didn't know this, the shield support items are really powerful right now. It's just nobody was playing it because the idea of having a tank in the bot lane was more appealing, because you wanted to carry, more often than not, you wanted to carry your bruiser in the top lane. So you needed a tank somewhere else. And in the jungle, you could also do a carry jungle or bruiser. So you'd want these, tankier supports, just because they, one, added more CC, two, they would inherently just add some survivability to your team by adding more hit points. Now, when we're looking at it here, why are these a big deal is that with them each having a buff to their shields, and Yuumi still being in the meta, and the fact that Lux shield support is coming into the meta, we might see an increase in shield supports. Which is not always the greatest. The last shield support meta we had encouraged the people to play 1 or 2 ADCs and build your team comp around ADCs. Being an ADC main, I kind of like this, but I also hate this because it also encourages picks to just dominate ADCs, which is good and bad. I mean, it just makes my solo queue more unhealthy. I feel like it's just not as fun to play in these, and I become much more reliant on my supports because that's what the team becomes built around, is me. And so I become reliant on the team playing around me, and it's just not as healthy for the solo queue environment. And I don't like those metas because of that reasoning. But hey, maybe you guys think of it differently. Please tell me what you feel about these changes. Tell me if there's any other big changes in this patch you really thought were like bigger than what I mentioned so far. But I do want to talk a little bit about game balance as well. Seeing as that was going to be the initial, idea for this podcast, I decided, what, let's do a little bit about it. And the biggest thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that the hate that Riot receives for their game balance is justified and unjustified. And what do I mean by this? And the biggest things that I mean by that is the fact that that it's hard, all right? Like, it's not easy balancing a game. And I know this by a small practical experience of my own. I am currently building a tabletop RPG game. It is called Wardens. It is not anywhere near completion. I was hoping to finish it by July. I've slacked off a little bit over the past couple of months. There's a few more parts of the actual game structure that I have to finish before I could even call it in beta. But I've been working on it for about a year and a half, and the reason it's taken so long, part of which is due to slacking off, but the other part of which is just balance in general is very, very hard. I want to add in a lot of fun elements to the game, but if people aren't looking to have fun and they're looking to be competitive in a game that is built for fun, which guess what, all games are built for fun, even if they have some competitive nature to them, it's very hard to balance between the two of those, as I want to do something that's like, oh, look, I want to give these guys the ability to to spend like 100 something XP on buying an extra action in the game. Well, what does that mean? Well, that extra action could be used to move more, maybe to allow them to do a bigger spell faster. It could add a lot of different elements to the game. But what it could also mean is that somebody who only does one action stuff per combat or uses reactions. Because in my game, what you could do is you could trade an action for two reactions. So if you do this, you could break the system if you build your guy around reactions and you just pay 100 XP to gain basically two reactions, and that's really powerful. It can be really powerful. So certain elements I do have to be wary of. I do have to balance it better, and I have to justify what is the average cost for something, and what do I have to be concerned with becoming overpowered due to other natures that they might be used for. Riot has even more complexity in their own game due to the fact that they have to balance champions, items, neutral objectives, towers, health shielding on towers. Each different style of champion, it hurts it. Like, there's so much elements in the game that they have to worry about, balancing, that they have a very difficult game of balancing. But also on top of that, they also balance from a very narrow-minded perspective. They say it's for, based off of pro play or based off of high tier players, but they do not really take into account a lot of those opinions a lot of the time. They occasionally will, but they do it, after people have been complaining about it for a long time. Seems to be a big, choice of theirs, because they want certain elements to be strong, because they want people to play these things that they've put a lot of time and effort into, and it hurts them to be like, oh man, but if we nerf them, nobody's going to play it. They take so much pride in their stuff, which they should. They put a lot of time and effort into it. They obviously should take pride in it, but it's very difficult when you're that attached to your own elements to be balancing it. So I feel like the design team and the balance team need to be two separate entities, right? Like, you need to separate the two of them due to the fact that you could have people that are designing your game while you also have other people that are implementing some type of balance to the game, whose entire job is reliant on uh, preventing things from getting too strong or making things uh, well weaker. The two-edged sword, I guess, right? Like, the two edges of the sword. There is, is it weak or is it strong? Do we need to make it stronger? Do we need to make it weaker? And you should obviously have a balanced team that is independent of the two, so that there isn't that immediate emotional attachment that the current design team has. They have issues nerfing things because they're attached to the thing they made. They don't want to see it not be played. So there is some, prejudice as to who gets buffs, who gets nerfs because of stuff like that. And to alleviate that, I think a larger separation and division of the two would help with it. On top of that, I believe that a big part of what game balance should be based around is for player satisfaction and player approval. Not based around what the company sees as a better meta for the game. Another big problem with their current design philosophy is they look from internal testing on everything. Beta, the PBE should be their primary testing ground. That has a giant amount of players who are higher elo players as well, that would allow them to be like, hey, this is way too strong and it should never reach the initial client. But we don't ever see that many changes between the PBE and the actual client unless Riot themselves realize, hey, this is something we're just testing, but we only want to test it on the PBE. We haven't tested it internally, we want to test it on the PBE, which they do occasionally, but they should be doing that with everything. They shouldn't just be like, hey, we're going to toss this on the PBE. We've internally tested it. You guys get to just experience it a week early. And that's basically all that the PBE is now. So I feel like there needs to be some changes done to their balance philosophy currently to affect the future of the game's balance changes. Last week I did touch up on the fact that they said that they were going to change in design based off of the different tiers, and that's all in good until they, decide to balance still to a meta that they are strictly heavy-handing. Metas should be determined by high elo and by the elo that you are present in. If Riot is constantly changing and abusing the meta, then this isn't going to be your meta. No matter how much information they take from the players, if they are constantly forcing who they think needs to be stronger, who they think needs to be weaker, then there's always going to be an unnatural meta, and the game itself could lose some of its players and some of its fun. Um, but that's kind of the gist of the game balance that I wanted to talk about. I feel like the general premise of their game philosophy their design philosophy they announced recently seems really good, but I believe that they do need to do a few more changes to their current setup to add on to this new change that they're trying to implement, so that there is a healthier game in general in the near future. But let me know what you guys think about it, guys. This podcast is always based on my opinion, and I always love to hear everybody else's opinions. So leave a comment down below. Maybe post on my Facebook page or on my Twitter. You could at me on either of those. You could watch me on Twitch. I don't care. Just feel free to talk to me, guys, or come into my Discord and come yell at me and be like, "You are an idiot." Please don't actually do that, but feel free to do so, I guess. And as always, guys, I want to thank you guys for watching and hope you liked the video and have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful day.